Toronto police are once again violently removing demonstrators and homeless people from a public encampment, this time at Lamport Stadium. So there have already been raids at Trinity Bellwoods Park, and yesterday there was a raid at Alexandra Park. I covered the one in Trinity Bellwoods. That was at the end of June. So my video on that, I'll link to it below, but the amount of force they bring out for these sorts of events is just ridiculous. I mean, you can see the police lining up here, just absolutely crazy. And again, same thing happened this time. So let me just play this as I read this tweet. You'll see all the cops coming down here. Police and private security have arrived at Lamport Stadium. The city says they will be evicting the 14 to 17 people experiencing homelessness who live at this encampment. So 14 to 17 people, and this is the kind of force they show up with. This is like a never-ending line of police here. Now, of course, they're just following orders from City of Toronto and Mayor John Tory, but you'll see the videos that I'm about to show you. The amount of violence involved here in removing these demonstrators really is completely insane. Now, several community organizers or organizations put out calls on social media for concerned residents to demonstrate at the park this morning, and about 100 people showed up to lend support to encampment residents. Some who were volunteering with the Encampment Support Network, an advocacy group, were passing bottles of water and packages of food to those behind the fence. Now, the biggest issue with what is going on here is the lack of permanent housing for the people that are living in these encampments. And again, we're talking 14 to 17 people. Removing these people who are not bothering anybody, living peacefully in a public space, forcibly removing them without giving them a place to a permanent place for them to go is just absolutely disgusting, and it speaks to the rot at the center of this issue, where it's more about the appearance that everything is great as opposed to actually taking the steps necessary to help people who are struggling. So let me show you some of these clips. There'll be a mix of clips here from Mark McAllister as well as Catherine Ward. So watch this.
What are you fucking arresting me for? What are you fucking...
Okay, let's go, folks. Trespassers, back. Let's go.
So that gives you a pretty good indication of the violence there that was being instigated by the Toronto police. These homeless people bothering nobody, demonstrators there standing in solidarity with the homeless, and the police move in and essentially attack and raid them. Now, Stephen Panwazi tweeted this out, saying violence against homeless people in a way that would make third world dictators jealous of the lack of scrutiny it attracts. Cleared the park in 20 minutes. Homeless people, lives uprooted again. Activists, at least $5,000 in legal fees and a record. Now, let me show you this clip here. This is from City TV, where they're speaking with Brad Ross, the Chief Communications Officer for the City of Toronto, and get a load of how he defends this.
Toronto officials say all individuals will be offered alternative recommendations. Not long ago, I spoke with the city's chief communications officer. He tells me the long game here is permanent housing.
When I say over time, permanently, so that they don't fall back into going onto the street, so that they have a housing option that has the supports they need, and not then return to an encampment where it is unhealthy and it is unsafe.
All right, back to a live look here. An advocate saying that until that housing is available, encampments are one of the safer places to live for people experiencing homelessness.
So, according to Brad Ross, the chief communications officer, the long game is permanent housing. The long game. Wouldn't it make a lot more sense to have the permanent housing ready now when you are raiding them, to forcibly, violently remove people from where they are living without a place for them to go? And yes, sure, they're offering them support in the sense that they are offered to go to homeless shelters. But as I've discussed in my previous video on this issue, there's a lot of issues with what's going on in those homeless shelters and the way they're being treated and the potential for COVID being spread and that sort of thing. So there are a lot of worries, legitimate worries from the homeless about moving into these shelters. So if your long game here is permanent housing, then you should have that ready now. It shouldn't be a long game. That should be ready now. I don't even know how they can say this kind of shit with a straight face. And on top of all this, we have how the media has been being treated, how they've been treated throughout this whole process. So during the raid on Alexandra Park, which was similar to what happened here, among those detained was a photographer for the Canadian Press. So he was handcuffed by a city security guard and released with a trespass notice. You're having the media here being given trespass notices for covering what is happening on public grounds. Brad Ross, spokesperson for the City of Toronto, suggested that the presence of media cameras intimidates those living in the encampments and hinders staff's ability to speak to them about potential options. This is so ridiculous. The idea that media, if this is his reasoning, then why isn't the city talking to them maybe the day before they raid them? Wouldn't it make a lot more sense to talk to the homeless before they're raided? So before the media shows up, you can still talk to them. But no, on the day they're being raided, the presence of media there makes it harder for city officials to speak to the homeless and offer them, alternative living. It is such ridiculous reasoning that falls apart within 2 seconds of thinking about it. Obviously, here the limit of media presence at these sorts of events is all done as a way to protect the police that are going in there, as I just showed you, violently removing demonstrators and the homeless. So this is continuing to be a major issue in Toronto. The approach here to homeless is just absolutely disgusting. And to be honest, look, you really don't see this kind of thing in other major cities. Other major cities have these homeless encampments. And yes, it's a problem. Yes, they should be given permanent housing. But in the meantime, before permanent housing is available, to forcibly remove them and give them no place to go where they can live in a permanent space is just absolutely disgusting. And right now, Toronto appears to be leading the world in this gross behavior.